This week in Australia, there's been a lot going on. So first we started with the Albanese government asking for $27 donations, and the reason was that for targeting fundraising campaign to stop One Nation from converting its rising poll numbers into parliamentary seats. Following up from that, the next day, One Nation came out with their own request for donations of $29 to Fire the Liar. So let's delve a little bit deeper into what's coming up in Australian politics, and in particular, what will we see for Albanese with his term. Maybe even take a look at what this will mean for also One Nation. Let's take a look at the two governments here. Okay, let's start with Albanese. Okay, what do we see for the future for Albanese? Okay, don't shoot the messenger. I'm just going to read what the cards say, and it's just going to tell you how the cards look with the Labor government, and then we'll take a look at the One Nation party here as well. Now, I see negative impact for Albanese. This could be related to him having to defend himself. It's not national defence. It's him having to defend himself given the recent budget that came out. So having to negatively affected by that. So I think that is connected to the donations that came through for each of the Labor and the One Nation, but I feel Labor government was negatively impacted by the actions of that budget. Whatever you think about that budget, I know having to defend himself, we're talking about Albanese needing to defend himself. Now, what's interesting here I'm picking up is that the whole part of this is the donation request from donations from the two parties. So Albanese's reason for this is the targeted fundraising campaign to stop One Nation from converting its rising poll numbers into parliamentary seats. Having to defend his seats, having to defend his place in politics, and perhaps even worried about the negative impacts of popularity rising for One Nation, because this is what we're talking about. We're talking about, that's the reason he asked for the donations, is worried about the rising poll numbers and converting them into seats. And I'm just purely reading this off what the reason is behind his request. So he's worried about the negative impacts for his party, having to defend himself or defend his position, defend his seats, particularly around the housing situation, because a lot of these policies that are brought in are connected to housing. So, and this is a card on the table, housing. There was the capital gains taxes. There is the negative gearing, and I'm not an investor of houses, so doesn't affect me at all. But I know people that are, and I know that they're concerned. So there is people worried about the impacts that these policies are going to bring for them, particularly if they are using housing, and I'm not talking about the big investors, I'm not talking about the billionaires and the ones that buy houses all over the place. I'm talking about the mums and dads. I'm talking about the families that want to invest money into houses for their retirement, to those kind of things. That's what I'm talking about, the small people. I'm not talking about the billionaires. So here we are looking at the housing, how it's going to affect generational wealth is what I'm hearing, generational wealth. Whatever that means, that's the raw message that I'm bringing through. Looking for help and assistance. Interesting. Providing intervention. It's the whole reason, it sums up the reason for this request for donations and money, is to ask the public for intervention or support to stop One Nation. This is what this means. Because he's concerned about his policies and people moving to One Nation because of what's happening around fear around the housing situation, having his defend his seats. That's what the story those cards are clearly telling. Up the top, it's a bit of a different story. So this card is policy too. This card, when you see someone signing, it's about signing policies. It's about changes, and they've got the pen out ready to sign. So that's what this one can be. It does say trusted advisor, which could definitely, trust is the biggest word here. Interesting, because the other campaign is Fire the Liar. So this has negatively impacted him personally, because people have lost trust in him, because he said he wouldn't touch whatever that was. I think it's negative gearing or the housing. So he said he wouldn't touch it, and he has. So that has impacted his credibility as far as people trusting him. Now, he did say something like the words were something to do with, and please quote them if you know them. I'm in my psychic brain, so I'm not quite logic, but it's something about changed his position. He's not going back on his word, he's changed his position is the word. So it's negatively impacted people's trust of him because he went back on his word, he changed his position. These cards are concerning up here when we're talking about the Labor government. They are bound by their allegiances, whatever those allegiances are, sitting next to global governance. And I'm not going to touch that. I think it's pretty obvious. Sitting next to lacking control. How much control he actually has. Interesting. Because of global governance, bound by allegiances. Interesting. Let's take a look at One Nation. Okay, with the One Nation donations, you can go onto their website and check. I think when I had a little look, and it was like 2.7 million is what they're up to from request from the public to donate money. Their title of their campaign is Fire the Liar. I tried to have a look to see, well, I didn't actually, my husband did, try to see if he could see what Labor was up to. He couldn't find that information, because I wanted to have both sides of the story, to be fair and balanced, to have both come out with the request for donations at the same time. And I just thought it would be interesting to see how much each party have raised, but I couldn't find the information for Labor government. So let's see now, get back in as I'm reading and touching into the energy of our One Nation. What can you tell me about One Nation? And okay, again, don't shoot the messenger. I'm just going to tell you what the cards mean here when it comes to the One Nation energy. So I'm reading One Nation energy here. We see outside the trusted circle. So they have always been outside of the trusted circle as far as two-party preferences. It's always been Liberal government or Labor government. And generally, One Nation was always outside of those two-party preferred parties. However, there's shifting alliances sitting next to that. So and that's what's happened in Australian politics, is that Liberal Nationals coalition has dropped numbers dramatically, and One Nation rose above those in the polls, and now One Nation is since the budget came out, is polling higher than Labor government against the both two. They were previously outside of the two parties, but now the alliances have shifted and they are polling higher than both of those national parties. However, we see the disappointing results. We see disappointing results. Now, that's, I don't believe, is connected to the donations, because the donations are currently sitting at 2.7 million. When I last checked, it's probably different now, but their original help or goal was for 1 million. So they surpassed their goal that they were asking for. Now, there's disappointing results, maybe when we're looking at converting rising poll numbers into parliamentary seats. Interesting. We see tyrannical leadership. Okay, what I see for this card is, when I look at it, it reminds me of the last elections, Peter Dutton, Liberal Labor. He had a personal attack campaign against him, that he was misogynist, tyrannical, all different things thrown around about him, and they tanked. He lost his seat. He was completely outed. He because there was a targeted attack on Peter Dutton. When I look at that card, that's what I see. So I feel there may be coming up a targeted attack on the One Nation Party, because how else do you explain disappointing results, shifting alliances from the party that was the outsider party, now nationally it's sitting above those two parties. So the alliance has shifted from the polling, but we do see disappointing results because of a targeted attack on One Nation, the leader of One Nation, Pauline Hanson. So we see, like what happened with Peter Dutton, we see a fall from grace. Now, a beneficial impact sitting on national defence. I need to add one to that because I'm not quite sure what they're trying to say there. So they're saying a beneficial impact for the national. I'm not saying it's the benefit of Australia, so as a whole, nationally. What do you want to add to that? Empty promises. Interesting. Okay, so maybe the disappointing results is not about the conversion of poll numbers into parliamentary seats. Maybe the disappointing results are their ability to implement their promises. But I think it's pretty clear what the cards are saying. They're saying that there will be a targeted attack resulting in a fall from grace, and we see struggles to deliver on promises, and maybe disappointing results. Interesting. Again, don't shoot the messenger. I'm just reading what the cards are saying. This is entertainment purposes only. This is a bit of fun. This is just having a little peer into what could be coming up for Australia and our ruling parties. Who's our leader? But interesting. So yeah, thank you for watching. Let me know your thoughts. Again, I don't want to make this a place where there's debate about this is not a place for why one politician is better than the other.